Hello, I'm the Blue Oak Iron Wings, and today we're going to be doing some bits with some threaded inserts. It's probably too small to show you here. I'll put some photos in so you can actually get them up close. This is actually the Firefly shotgun, or the Colonel Ross Firefly shotgun. I am doing some other bits and pieces for this, but the screws go into the ABS and it's frankly a bit rubbish, so with somebody else's advice I'm going to put in some brass threaded inserts in, but I need to drill some holes straight to actually fit them. So right in the garage here to do that today. The first thing I'm actually going to do is give it a shot into scrap PLA, basically to see whether I can get it working or not. So we will do that, see if it works. If that works, then we brave and try putting it in here. And once that's all done, I actually need to modify the screws as well, because the heads themselves are slightly too large to go into the screw wells. So anyway, let's get started. Ooh, how deep am I sending these? About 5mm. So I've measured the depth of the insert. And I set my cheap Chinese calipers to that depth, so I can use it as a depth gauge to figure it out. Now the PLA will be much easier to work with than the ABS, but it also gives me a chance to figure out how exactly I'm going to be doing this. But I'll put the bolt screw through a bit, because it'll help guide it in, and then we press fit it. Press fit it very carefully. Only slightly cockeyed, but that was a 4mm hole, but that seems to have got on there and stayed there. Let's grab that screw. That came out a bit too easy for my liking. But is it because this is soft? So that came out too easy for my liking, but is that because that is soft? Because it's going into infill or all of the above. I'm going to stick with this because the ABS is the 4mm bit, because the ABS is harder. And in particular, we're going to start with one of the ones that don't matter so much, because these ones here, these three, maybe 4 in particular, they're holding the area around the spring. 5 if you include that one. Yeah, and these ones at the front here are going to hold the barrel in. These two are not so important. I think we're just going to yo-lo it. Should be deep enough. Okay. So I've drilled out the hole, you see it's slightly bigger there. Clip the small hole. Drive the screw all the way down. Okay. Try and drive it in via this thing so it's a bit flatter. This feels tighter than the PLA. Or maybe it's because I'm not using a hammer. Now I just want to back off that screw a bit, 'cause I'm not sure whether I'm bottoming it out. It's getting a bit off centre now. Yeah. Go. It's not perfectly level and flush, but I am happy enough to proceed with the rest. I'll come down here so we can hammer in these bits. I have noticed that as you unscrew them, the screws seem to get looser. I think it's because there's a slight slit in here. And obviously as the material, as the screw goes down, it pushes it out and it grips harder. So I am using these to kind of start them off, because having the screw pushing through the bottom of the insert is a good guide. But then beyond a certain point, I'm going to back the screws out, and in the end I've decided to completely drift them without the screws at the end, because they've got to be pulled out so much they're not forcing it open, but then you've got like a lever acting and it's only acting on a couple of threads. You don't want to trash the threads. So once we're started, we're just going straight to hammering them in. So that's all 12 brass inserts. Just checking clearances so it'll actually shut. I do worry about some of these being a little bit proud, but if they shell shut, we're fine. And I'm confident enough to say it even shuts up. I'm either going to have to reduce the heads on these screws so they don't actually fit through these screw holes, or possibly embiggen these screw holes. That one at the back has a lot of material around it, so that is one I might just drill out. But for other ones I'm not so sure, because for example this one is completely stand out by itself. And if I take too much out of it, will it be strong enough to actually hold it together? Right, I end up drilling one of them through. See, these can't go too deep or they'll come out, but if they're too shallow the things won't fit in, or there'll be no space behind them for the screws. And I may end up having to, cut the length of these, or mind you, if I'm going to drill out the screw holes I may end up not doing them so deep. Okay, I've come up with a plan. The inserts are about 5mm, and when you take 5mm off the length of whatever that is, the threaded section is about 3mm. So what I need to leave is the last 3mm of this. This is set to 3mm and I can use that as a depth gauge. Turns out this is about 3mm as well. So I put it down there, and I brought this down, and I've put the stop on so it can't go any lower. So in theory that means I can't drill too low. Drilling out these holes is preferable to grinding off these heads. Problem with drilling out the holes is I may remove too much material. If I just embiggen the top, there's enough left on some of these material wise that they still work. See? And looking at it, I think I can certainly do all of these and that one. These ones that stand out too much, and I might get away with that one. These ones stand out too much, I'm a bit too worried that if I drill out enough to get in, it'll be so thin there'll be nothing to grab. In the end, I didn't actually grind down the heads, because it occurred to me if I ground too much off the heads, they'd be the same size as the actual threaded section, then there'd be nothing to kind of hold stuff down. So that was a no-go. What I did, and would have actually been sensible to us in the first place, was use some longer screws. So let's just bring you down a bit. So you can see here, that's the original length of screw I bought to go with these threaded inserts, which you like to do the drilling out stuff. It's okay here because it's relatively short. But for example here, you can kind of see it's far too long. Luckily in my stash of nuts and bolts in the garage, I had some same size and same thread pitch I suppose, screws I could just put in. I ended up using them there, here, there I believe, and also here. Although with this one that's just... Can you focus? There we go, it's focusing eventually. And it's got another long one here, but what I ended up doing was actually cutting it short. Just to make it fit. Bit of advice when cutting down screws. put a nut on it, cut off the bit you want, then as you back off the nut it'll help to kind of clean up and sort of recut the threads a bit, because it's easier to get a nut off to clean the threads up than it is to try and get it on to clean them on. And ultimately that was it. So yeah, my advice with being threaded inserts is drill for the threaded inserts as basically as straight as you can. I found having a bench tool very useful, but I mean, if you've not got the tools, you just have to be gentle and steady-handed, and buy a variety of length of screws before you start, because some will be convenient and short and some will be much better to have longer ones. I mean, in hindsight, if I remembered I had these long ones before I started, basically quite a lot of these I would have used the longer ones, because I wouldn't need to do any drilling at all whatsoever, particularly on this one, which I'm not massively happy with. But yeah, that's that. Thanks for watching.